Welcome back. So we are looking at Birds of Prey number 11, Worlds Without End, part three. And as an addition to this, it says of five, which I don't think was true of parts one and two. So now we're just becoming clear how long this is going to be. Writer Kelly Thompson, art Robbie Rodriguez, Javier Pina, and Gavin Guidry, and colorist Jordi Belair. The search for Oracle, the birds of prey's personal failings threaten to turn an advantage into a disadvantage as their search for Barbara continues to be more fight for their lives than search for Oracle. Oh, and there are dinosaurs. So if we start off with the cover, we've somehow fallen into the land of the lost or the savage land, and this is of course coming from, which is interesting that she's in the background, but Sin's mindscape. Here got some velociraptors. um yeah, I mean, the costumes continue to be, I think, really fun. And Vixen is doing way more on the cover than I think she does in the actual book, but that's quite all right. And yeah, I mean, it is a fun cover. I do actually in particular like the coloring that is done by Jordi Belair. In particular, once we get in and there's just like it's almost a wash with red. Um, and I think it's not only the lighting that we can assume coming through when they're in this cave, but the fact that Vixen is until the very end of this issue without the red. So I think it's symbolic there. Um, and then change it. And also I think maybe like psychologically like separated from other people, and then when she's with another character, she's able to be a different color. But I do like this kind of simplistic coloring that's just like blending I guess it's like monotonal almost, or a dual tone, since I see it's like black and red and then blue and red, different things like that. So I think that that's an interesting choice. I think good on Belair to be able to manipulate the coloring style with this change of artists, and the fact that we have three different pencilers here that kind of goes back and forth, which works out because I mean we do have, you know, this transition, and even this page right here, seeing them in their previous outfits as they're going through this portal and then changing is pretty interesting. So yeah, definitely reminds me of the Savage Land and X-Men, and I mean any of the I don't know, like classic 80s looking stuff with dinosaurs, or women with ripped garb, you know, like Conan or something like that. It definitely gives me those sorts of vibes. I appreciate, and I think this is just something that I'll always bring up when it happens, and it happens frequently. Is that Thompson, I think, looks ahead as to questions that readers will have, and will answer that within the actual story. So one of them, I think, the question is like why Vixen, she's not incapable, but she's definitely struggling. She gets freaked out there. But Cass, I mean, Cass doesn't seem to have an issue. And I should say that one of Dinah's directives to Barda, I think it was, is that do not leave Vixen's side. So Dinah sees that Vixen is vulnerable without the red, and seems to be vulnerable. And they had that discussion, if I'm to go back to that. Um, yeah, she says, like it was my first day at this. And then Dinah tries to, I mean, see all the colors of Dinah as a leader here. Don't be so hard on yourself. And then Vixen says, don't patronize me. I didn't see Cass almost getting her head bitten off by a dinosaur, which is a legitimate concern because Cass doesn't have powers. Why was she not struggling? And then here is that answer. Of course not. Cass hasn't lost her primary skill set. She's, other than annoyed as we all are, the same as she always is. But you've lost a fundamental piece of yourself in here. And it's, of course, going to take a minute for you to adjust to that. And so that was because I was thinking, like, what's going on? Why can't Vixen hold her own against these, but that's a legitimately good answer and it makes sense. So I appreciate that. The other one is, of course, why are we in a land of dinosaurs? If this was coming from Sin's head. Dinah, again, look at this, leader, but also mother slash sister. Um, tell me what's going on here. And so Sin says, I was afraid of what the portal was going to say about me. I was afraid it would read Megara as the dominant personality inside us. That we would go through and it would be all ancient Greek nonsense and nothing about it would be me. So when we were going through, I thought really hard about something else, anything I could think of, but I'm reading a paleontology book. And so, da, da, da. Because that is a big question like, oh my gosh, why were they thrown in here? So, again, yeah, answering those questions, which I really appreciate. I found it interesting that Barda understood a reference to the Labyrinth film, which I guess I feel like she has trouble with idiom sometimes. So would she understand a pop culture reference? I almost, would say that she's comparable to Captain America, where he was writing down things, remember, in his notebook and trying to understand references and things like that. And in one of the movies said, like, I get that reference. So it's just interesting that she would get that particular reference. Beyond the oubliette, which I did have to look up what that was in particular. But and if you don't know what that is, it's basically a way to isolate people. I would say generally prisoners, but there's almost like a window to the outside, so it's like even more troubling. So if you think of like a prison that's maybe like a lower level, but there's a window up there, so they can see out there, but they'll never get there. Yeah, just like I think a mentally and emotionally trauma inducing or almost torture without even touching somebody. I wouldn't say, in my opinion, that a lot happens in this issue beyond looking into the psychology of some characters, in particular Vixen and Sin, and also seeing Dinah's leadership continue to develop, or if you don't like that, just seeing Dinah's leadership and again, the various colors of it or how it manifests. Babs continues to be at another location, and she also, the weapon, she was holding on to it, right? She considers this an upgrade. I probably would as well, since it's a stick and a huge rock. So it looks like, a primitive version of like Thor's axe or something like that. And then we have Meridian um on the outside of all of this with Zealot and John Constantine trying to figure something out. And it seems like Cass may or the solution may have something to do with Cassandra. So it'll be interesting. And, more questions about who Zealot is because she has some sort of past with John Constantine, but then they said like, no, we don't have a past. So that was interesting. Tom did text me at one point when he was listening to my previous episode. He brought up a good point that an example of people going through the same portal but at different times might be and I think I have said or I thought it later that Ben 10 I think is definitely one of those. I think that happened when Ben went into the portal before Gwen did, and so Gwen got there and was like still a kid and then Ben was an adult. But Tom mentioned Paper Girls, and I think that generally they were all together. But I think when they were thrown like way back in time, there were pairs of them, and they were like different locations, but may have been like the same time period. So that was a good shout as to how that sort of thing might have been happening because Barbara is still, well, she seems to be in the same time period at the very least. It's just like different locations. So yeah, like I said, I feel like we're just pushing the storyline, but not a lot has actually happened. Vixen does connect with the red finally, so I guess that's a positive. And then they do get attacked. And it was a bit confusing that all of a sudden, like Selah is like, maybe we shouldn't trust her. And I'm like, but you kept pursuing her in the previous issue. Why are you all of a sudden now thinking maybe you shouldn't trust her? So that was a bit weird. But I think I'll give this an 8.5 out of 10 shredded costumes. Um, yeah, we'll see. We got two more issues left. Do you think we'll be able to wrap it up? It'll be very interesting. Okay, well, we have now moved on to Stella's Dungeon of Smut, which is brought to you by Hornacek's Fried Calamari Sticks. And we'll see what I have read because, like I said, I've been taking just like relaxing and like building back my mental health. I have read a lot. So let's see. I feel like more smut than like regular books. Okay. And remember, I will only say if I may not have rated anything four and above. Um, so I've oh, okay. I was gonna say there's one. Okay, the only one I'm gonna recommend because I have really read a lot. And there's like a good series that I would recommend, but it's like, oh, which one was this one? Okay. Sarah Kate did a series. Shoot, I can't remember what it's called. And it's like surrounding this sex club that these people are owners of. And so it goes through each of the owners. And one of them was a step, it was an age gap, but stepbrother, step sibling one. But it was, I mean, they both had like their own traumas to deal with. That one was actually good. And that one was called Eyes on Me. And then another one was Mercy. And this was a reverse age gap, which I hate that particular phraseology because it just assumes that age gaps with men dating older women is like the standard. But so, anyways, I guess I'll still say that it's an older woman, a younger guy, and they meet on like a kink dating app. And if you find out that she finds out that she's a dominant and would like best work with a brat, and he finds out that he's a brat, and that I thought actually that that was written really well. And I feel like if anyone in the BDSM community did not like 50 Shades, I think that they would like that. And I actually like better understood, what that was like. I thought that it was written with a lot of sensitivity towards that culture. And also like if Sarah Kate's not a part of that culture, she did a lot of research and it like made sense. Because there's like one scene of a strong beating and I'm like, oh my gosh. But then it like how it was explained made sense. But anyway, so those would be two that I would recommend there. And then Boarded Hearts by Ruth Stilling. I really love that. And that was older woman, younger guy, and like she has kids. She's going through a divorce. I thought it was well written. I like it more than the sequel just came out, which is okay, but I don't think I'll give it a four. But just a lot of threes. I've read a lot. Some have been not good, but I would rather give it like a 2.5 than a three. And I think that's it there. So yeah, it's a little intense. I will say, yeah, those Sarah Kate ones are really intense. I think I read all of them except for one because the guy was like in his 60s and was going to have a really younger woman. And I was like, I don't think I can handle that. So please no. Okay, so then that's it for my Dungeon of Smut. Now I move on to my literature recommendations, which I haven't been reading too much of that. I did read, which I don't recommend. This is going to be controversial. I give it a 3 out of 5, but Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. This was given to me, actually, both of the literature books that I read, given to me by the same person. And I remember Tom in a previous episode of Required Reading saying that he would never read that because the author is a homophobe. And I didn't know anything about that. And so I just wanted to get it off my shelf. And so I was reading that when I went to Cape Cod. And it's interesting to read it with this knowledge that he's a homophobe, which seems like it might be some internalized homophobia because the novel is pretty gay. The novel is pretty gay. There is a scene like all the and they're little boys. They're like 8 through 12 years old. So that also makes me uncomfortable. But like one of the rooms or one of the squads he was in, like all the boys were naked. One of them, the squadron leader, told Ender to stay away from his tablet because he had like a projection of like zoomed in male genitalia on it and he didn't want anyone to mess with that. But at one point, Ender greeted one of his friends by saying, "How are you, how are you, you circumcised dog?" Which I now use as greeting to some people because I think that it's like the weirdest thing ever. And now it's just almost, it's so weird that it's hilarious. And another weird thing that happened that's not necessarily homoerotic, but Ender's siblings that are 1 and then 2 years older than him, when I think they were like 11, 12, at one point, the eldest, who's the a brother, says to the sister, "We have eight, I think, eight pubic hairs between us." And I'm like, these are children. These are children. There's just like a lot. I don't know. And so, yeah, I guess this guy's really hating something about himself because he certainly did write this. I found it boring. It was just the same thing over and over again. Um, yeah, I know people love that, but explain to me, I guess, the homoeroticism, and then explain to me, about, yeah, this guy. I think he was like supposed to see, Donovan told me this, and I didn't do my research because I don't really need to waste my time on this man, but I guess it was something like he was hired to write maybe Superman, and then he said something publicly about the queer community and then got nixed. But yeah, didn't like it. I know people love it. And if you want to explain to me some of the things that go on in that book, why, for instance, a boy has enlarged male genitalia on his desktop screensaver, doesn't want anyone to touch it because he's afraid that it'll leave it. Or why in greeting you would call someone else a circumcised dog, let me know. So I don't like it, but I didn't like it as badly as I didn't like The Knicks by Nathan Hill. And my friend also gave me this. He has some sort of sickness because he said that whenever he sees this in the wild, he has to buy it. And so I guess I was the lucky person to get this particular book. Um, I found this was also boring. Man, I felt like it went nowhere. And then there are like some weird things that were going on. There's definitely pedophilia in there. There was simulated sex between 12-year-olds. There was a weird section which I didn't even know how this is going to get explicit, but this comes from this book where this girl decided, who's like a side character who gets the main character fired, decides like she won't do blowjobs anymore because the last time she did it with her boyfriend, like a chunk of food or something came out of the pee-pee, and she became ill, and she's like, never again. And then later on, it would say that or maybe she would realize, or she did realize, I can't remember, that, oh, it just had dislodged food from inside her own mouth, but it was like too late. And so because of that, like basically the guy ejaculates like anywhere and everywhere on her person, and it's like a whole thing. And I'm just like, why was this scene necessary in this particular book? But my friend loves it. I did not. So both of those books I would not recommend, but those are the ones that I have. I'm excited for the books that I have now. I have The Outsiders, which I've never read. I'm going to go see The Outsiders on Broadway with The Good Professor. So maybe there'll be a rumble right before between her and I, between her and me. And maybe one of us will make it to the show. And then I also got The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley, and I've read, I think, all of her other ones, and I've liked all of them. So looking forward to that. But of the other stuff. Yeah, I don't know. See, this is why I just read the smut because at least it's like I know what I'm getting into. And it's just like I don't have to concentrate as much. But that's yeah, that's about it. I will show wise recommend Under the Bridge. I really liked that. And I think that's oh, I also watched America's Sweethearts, the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and watching that, I that was so good. I really enjoyed it. I have major problems with the coaching, which I'm sure like I could have a discussion with anyone on, but it was so wholesome because all of those women are so sweet and there's like no drama between them and they're very kind. It was lovely. And I also watched Simone Biles Rising, and I don't know if there are going to be any more episodes, but that was interesting to get into her mindset post Tokyo and then leading up to this one. And of course, now, yeah, just watching, let's see what the USA women's soccer team is able to do. It's a weird looking team, I have to say. They did just beat Zambia 3-0. I think they're playing Germany next and then Australia, or is it New Zealand after that? So we'll just be watching. My Great Britain team did not, it's nuts. They did not qualify just because of friendlies. And I think having too many, I think they lost once to the Netherlands, and then I think there were some draws, and just the points didn't get it, but they would have been the ones that I was rooting for. I think that's it. I'm sorry if I scarred you with that, but that's honestly, if you want to read the Knicks, then you're going to be reading that stuff, and you can explain to me why that scene was in there. Send any, yeah, questions or comments to backrow@gmail.com. I think the main one is if you're reading Birds of Prey, what does it mean that they're deciding their business based on love? I'd love to understand that better. Like the show, oh, I just thought I could tweet Gail Simone. I know she's busy with San Diego Comic Con, but maybe she would respond. I can try that. Like the show on Facebook or follow it on Twitter at Batgirl the Oracle. Subscribe to the show on YouTube for an uncut version. I feel like I'm out of it, so it's certainly this was not my best episode. I feel like I'm like just getting back into things. So here we are. We'll get back into the rhythm. Follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and support the Batman Universe by subscribing to Patreon. Once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Batgirl to Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. And until next time, fly on, Babs lovers.